Section 21. God never abandons his church at any time. She herself has nothing to fear from the attacks of men, but the people who have denigrated in Christian virtues have not the same guarantee. Sin maketh people miserable. Proverbs 14:34. If past ages have proved this truth by experience, by what right should ours be accepted? Many signs show that the due punishment is hanging over our heads. And the same thing is confirmed by the condition of most governments. Internal evil consumes many, and not one is in a state of perfect security. If the factions of the wicked continue to follow their audacious advances, if they succeed in progressing in insolence and power, as they do in wickedness and artifices, it is to be feared they will destroy the very foundations which nature has given to the social edifice. Mere human resources are powerless to prevent such formidable dangers, especially at the present time, when great numbers of men have rejected the Christian faith and will have to submit to the penalty of their pride. Blinded by their passions, they seek the truth in vain. She leaves them and only permits them to embrace error, and they believe themselves wise because they call evil good and good evil, because they put darkness in the place of light and light in the place of darkness. Isaiah 5:20. May God intervene and, remembering his mercy, cast a compassionate glance upon human society. Therefore, we here renew the constant exhortation, as we have ever done, to redouble your zeal and perseverance in addressing to a merciful God humble supplications, and in returning to the practice of the virtues that constitute the Christian life. It is above all important to excite and practice charity, which is the principal foundation of the Christian life, and without which the other virtues do not exist, or they remain barren. It is for this reason the Apostle St. Paul, after having exhorted the Colossians to fly from all vice, in order to merit for themselves the various virtues, adds, quote, "But above all these things have charity, which is the bond of perfection." Colossians 3:14. Yes, truly, charity is the bond of perfection, for she unites those who embrace her to God himself intimately. By her their soul receives its life from God, lives with God and for God. But the love of God must not be separated from the love of one's neighbor, because men have been made partakers in the infinite goodness of God, and they bear within themselves the imprint of his likeness and the resemblance to his being. And this commandment we have from God, that he who loveth God love also his brother. If any man say, I love God, and hates his brother, he is a liar. 1 John 4:21-20. This precept of charity has been called a new law by its divine author, not because there were no previous law, nor because nature itself had not commanded it, but because the Christian precept of love was really new and without example in the world. In fact, the same love with which Jesus Christ was loved by his Father, and by which he himself loved men, he imposed as an obligation upon his disciples and followers, so that they might be one heart and one soul in him, as he and his Father are one in nature. No one is ignorant of the force of this commandment, and how deeply from the beginning it was implanted in the hearts of Christians, and how abundantly it has produced the fruits of concord, mutual kindness, piety, patience, and fortitude. Why do we not apply ourselves to imitate these examples of our fathers? The present time in which we live should incite us not a little to practice charity. When the impious lay themselves out to hate Jesus Christ, Christians should redouble their piety towards him, and renew in themselves that charity which is the principle of great things. If there are some dissensions among them, may they disappear. May those disputes cease that dissipate the strength of the combatants, without any profit to religion. May all minds be united in the faith, all hearts in charity, in order as is just, that the whole life may be centered in the practice of the love of God and of mankind. Section 22. We desire here to exhort specially the fathers of families to regulate the government of their households and the first education of their children according to these precepts. The family is the cradle of civil society, and it is for the most part in the surroundings of the home that the destiny of states is prepared. Those who wish to tear society away from Christianity go to the very roots and endeavor to corrupt the family. They do not allow themselves to be deterred from this attempt by the thought that this cannot be accomplished without inflicting upon parents the most cruel outrage. For to parents it belongs by virtue of natural right to educate their children to the ends which God has given them. It is a strict obligation laid upon parents to give all their care and to neglect no effort to repulse energetically all unjust violence done to them in this matter, so that they may guard their exclusive authority in the education of their children. They must, moreover, imbue these with the principles of Christian morality and absolutely oppose their children frequenting schools where they are exposed to the fatal poison of impiety. When it is a question of the good education of youth, we have no right to fix a limit to the pains and labor that result, however great these may be. Those Catholics of all nationalities who, at the expense of much money and more zeal, have erected schools for the education of their children are worthy of being proposed for the admiration of all. It would be well if this beautiful example were followed wherever circumstances called for it. Always and everywhere, account must be taken of the great influence exercised over the souls of children by home education. If the young find in the home the rule of a virtuous life and, as it were, a practical school of Christian virtue, the salvation of society in the future is in great part guaranteed. Section 23. We believe that we have pointed out the conduct to be observed and the dangers to be avoided. It rests now with you, venerable brethren, upon whom this obligation is incumbent, that you take care to diffuse everywhere our words, and that you make all understand how important it is to put into practice the teachings contained in this letter. To accomplish these duties cannot be an inconvenient and painful obligation, since the yoke of Jesus Christ is sweet and his burden is light. If sometimes our counsels appear difficult to practice, it is for you to use your authority and to act by your example, in order to incite the faithful to make the most energetic efforts, and not allow themselves to be overcome by any difficulty. Show them what we ourselves have often shown them, that their most precious gifts are in danger of loss, and they should seek out the highest good. Let them remember that in their preservation all toils are to be endured, and that these labors have a right to the highest recompense by which the Christian life is crowned. On the other hand, to refuse to fight for Jesus Christ is to fight against him. He has clearly proclaimed this. He will deny before his Father in heaven those who have not confessed him upon earth. Luke 9:26. As regards ourselves and as regards you all, never assuredly as long as our life continues shall we incur the risk that in such a struggle our authority, our advice, or our care should in any manner be wanting to the Christian people. Nor can there be any doubt that while this life lasts, God will help with his particular succor both the flock and the pastors.